time now for the news review with me, Sweetie Abochi, and Benjamin Akakpo. Benjamin, like
You're
you do to
me.
yes, I'm hosting you. Like you do to your
Please,
guests
your
every
guest.
time
I'm
on the
guest.
show. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to tell me what you're thinking this morning about the most topical issue in the country.
Are you sure you want me to do this?
Yes, I want you to do this.
You want me to?
You're my guest,
Anyway,
Benjamin. What's on your mind this morning?
It's something I'm going to share my blunt thoughts on.
Right.
So I wouldn't go too far into it. By the way, I've titled my blunt thoughts for this morning, A Tsunami of Political Promises Cutting Surgically to the Truth. A tsunami of political promises cutting surgically to the truth. The things I'm going to say this morning, some people will not like, but no credit about. Some people will say it's your opinion, but I think if you read between the lines, you'll see where our politicians are taking us. And I'm not just saying one person or only one party, but both major parties in this country. But today I'll be narrowing down on just one. But I think I started sharing yesterday about Dr. Bawumia and some of what he's saying.
Right.
The credit scoring system, I think that is a plus.
Okay.
It's something that, others have spoken about before, and it's something that would work, I believe, if we got it right.
Yeah.
But the rest of the stuff, talking about scrapping national service, I was like, who gave this advice? Like, go to South Korea, they are now, military recruitment or getting them to do military service as part of their training. I've said that if I had my way, of the 10 months or so of national service, about 3 or at least 2 will be spent in the barracks. Getting no one is harassing you. No one is, and from that pool, you could actually get those who are very interested rather than the MPP4 bra, NDC4 bra that we do, that kind of recruitment that we do.
Talking about this national service issue and on the back of graduate unemployment, the employable percentage of graduates that the universities churn out every year are only employable because they have some sort of experience from serving in various corporate roles.
And it's a point I have made.
It's very pivotal. You did, huh?
It's a point I have made that, not this morning before you, but that a lot of these, if you pick a chunk of our tertiary students who graduate, they have practically no work experience. This is their first attempt at anything, at messing up, at learning, at knowing what a memo is, at knowing that you don't say the reason why, you say the reason, at basic things they need to learn before they introduce to the job market. There are exceptions. There are some who are brilliant, excellent, off the bat, who may have had experience because they've traveled abroad or done a few things. But the ordinary person, tertiary student, trust me, they're not ready. So I asked myself, who is thinking through all of these things? Then you say, bordering on corruption, which I felt he didn't want to talk about, but publishing of contracts for public scrutiny. And I looked at it and felt, okay, how about now? You have the Declaration of Assets in the 1992 Constitution.
Okay.
What are we doing with it?
Nothing.
So even when the media wants information about someone who is mired in something, you'll never get that information about their assets. And even worse, we focus on assets, forgetting liabilities. So someone can have 2 houses, 3 cars, and that's it. So they've declared their assets, right? But they can still be very corrupt. You know why? Maybe they are owing 1 billion Ghana cedis to somebody. So when they steal, it goes into defraying the debt. It's a liability. You will not see it because they've not added anything onto themselves, but they are still stealing. Yeah. There are so many loopholes. You say you're now going to publish contracts and do X, Y, Z. Honestly, I just think seriously that our politicians on all sides, I'm sorry to say this, think we are fools. And they can say anything and get away with it. But let me leave it there. I'll go surgical in my blunt thoughts.
I think that was an interesting choice of topic. But one thing that also was really interesting to me was that Bawumia says that they're particularly happy that they've digitalized our identification system. I think that for every country, that is a very basic that you should do. Identification, digitization. you should know who you have in your country, their names, and the country streets and towns should have names. If this is what you have to brag about, while other people are talking about fast trains and cleaner forms of energy, and you want to talk about identification, I thought that was a low blow. I didn't actually have any expectations, Benjamin, of this speech. And then I watched Evans and Winston on the build-up to the actual speech, and I thought, wow, okay, there's something must come out of this.
Yeah.
And then I watch and I hear 24 hours a day with little to nothing. But let's get into the papers this morning. I will start with the Daily Graphic. Let's do some headlines. Of course, what we're talking about, it says, public scrutinizes Bawumia's vision. That is on the front page of the Daily Graphic. The story is actually on page 3. And then it says, economic hardship, insecurity spike in Mali. That's another headline on page 5. On page 7, it says, changing perceptions to increase agri productivity. I think this is an editorial. It talks about how agriculture is now the way to go, industrialization
it's always
and all
been
that.
the way to go.
Yeah, but it hasn't been the focus for us as a country. But the youth are picking up.
Agric has always been the focus. I mean, here's the point.
Okay.
It's always been the focus, and it's always not been the focus.
Okay, explain what you mean.
Even before, even in the independence period. I mean, farming cocoa and other things. They were up there,
But
it's always been a focus, but what we need to make agriculture actually deliver the goods to us is what we're not doing. I keep saying from my experience in Brazil, the richest, some of the wealthiest people there, whose children are in Ivy League institutions in the States, who drive the flashiest cars. And cars are very expensive in Brazil, owing to their own peculiar system, right? They're farmers. Farmers.
Right.
There's this Reverend Evans something. Recently, I saw him on, I think it was Oyeripa, ranting about farming and the cost of everything. He farms cassava and a few other things. We've not focused, and it's been the backbone of our economy for decades. And now it is losing its place because we are not doing enough. You go to the Sisala West area, where the MP says they are the cereals, hub for the country. Now people are smuggling them to Burkina Faso and the rest. So it is, but at the same time, it isn't because we've not prioritized it.
And I was saying that it's the approach to it. There are a lot of loopholes to punch when it comes to, if this agriculture is really the backbone of our economy, we have land, vast land, lucrative for farming and all that, but the approach to it has not been the best, which is why these days I see a lot of young people graduate who are picking up farming. They're not waiting on government to give them jobs anymore. A lot of these small farming companies are producing things, dried fruits, grow it all. You see them around in the market, and they're all Ghanaian-made products. Yeah. And it's quite impressive, to say.
And that's why I like it when I don't know about Senor Jose. I think he may as well, but even the Winston Amwes, Winston, our colleague, he's into farming. He rears pigs.
Okay.
So that's animal husbandry. Right. It's also part of farming. The likes of Dr. Kwame Asante, he farms tilapia. He has his own aquaculture, whatever thing going on.
Right.
The John Dumelos have their farms, ginger, among other things.
Yeah.
I think we need a leader, and when you refer to Ignatius Kutu Echampong, some people say, oh, you're referring to a coup maker, a couist, a putschist. It doesn't matter. He made agriculture, farming sexy. We need to make agriculture sexy for young people. Me, if I had a certain level of resources, because I've worked in the cashew processing chain. Okay. And cashew, kilogram for kilogram, will earn you way more than cocoa. Right? Okay. So, if I had my way and if I had the resources, I would go into massive cashew farming. It's a long-term investment, but when you start reaping, it's amazing. Rubber trees are there. Cassava, there's so much you can do with cassava. But we're sitting on our rears, and the worst part, we don't work on the raw stuff to ensure that we are getting refined stuff. So when you send the raw material out there, it's like chocolate, right? Yeah. Belgium is the chocolate Brussels, chocolate capital of the world. They don't produce cocoa there. You ask yourself why. They get it from all these countries, process, sell back to us at exorbitant prices.
And even on their
packaging. Because we refuse to think.
Yeah. Their packaging tells you the percentage of cocoa that comes from Ghana.
Yeah.
And you wonder what we are doing with cocoa and all the resources that we have. But also, let's go back to the newspapers now. And we're talking about the headlines before we get into the actual stories. It says governments to appoint more women and persons with disabilities. I think that's a great initiative.
It is.
If they're going to appoint more women and persons, inclusive government is the way to go. What do you have, though?
I have the Daily Guide newspaper, the Ghanaian Times newspaper as well. The Daily Guide says, Gutta president hails poor taxes reform. Former youth sports minister dies in India. And that is a sad development. This was a man I knew personally, the late Dr. Mustafa Ahmed. He was a dentist, I believe. He had a practice on the Nima stretch towards Konka. Bawumia is a man of destiny, Kufuor says. So Kaswa murder suspect demands DNA test, and Manchia holds 150th Sagrenti War Durbar. From my readings, Sagrenti, you know where it came from?
Sir Garnet Wolseley.
Yeah. And they couldn't say Sir Garnet Wolseley, so Sagrenti.
We have a lot of those.
We have a lot of those in English. They just skip my mind, but we have a number of them.
Yeah.
I think Six Miludu is one of them, and there are others.
What is the actual thing for Six Miludu?
I've forgotten, but there's something. There's something in there. Kurt denies interfering in coaches' roles. That's a Kurt Okreku.
Yeah.
And as for our football, I don't even want to go there. It's another mess on its own. Messi faces Hong Kong government. It said that they played this team in Hong Kong, and he was being taken on by the administration because they had sold the match based on the fact that he would play, and Opana didn't play. And his team in recent times, people have been comparing his team to Al Nassr. Al Nassr gave them 6 to nothing. Oh yes, it was a drubbing, a thrashing, a thumping, a beating, an annihilation, an obliteration,
a massacre,
a total massacre, slaughter.
Okay.
And Zero didn't even play. Oh. So if he had played, they'll come back to 10. Then they go and play some Japanese team. I've forgotten the name. And they also give it to them. And I was like, Inter Miami, why? At least, won't Messi and Nimkakre. DR Congo players abandon anthem to show solidarity. So that's it. Then the Ghanaian Times disclosed funding sources.
Yeah.
I'll be getting into the story.
Yeah.
Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition demands as it pushes political parties to promote campaign finance transparency and protect the integrity of the electoral process. Dr. Vice President, as you talk big about your promises, focus on these ones too, because your administration has been tagged with enough corruption for you to be concerned. Asante Hene receives first batch looted regalia from University of California on loan. Okay. NRSA begins. You want to talk about that?
I wanted to talk about, former President Kufuor saying that Bawumia is the man.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Let me just clear the headlines.
Please go ahead.
NRSA begins commercial road transport e-registration next month to improve safety. And I'll encourage Ghanaians to have mindset of possibilities. Veep declares as he outlines 15 broad areas to tackle. Then Ashanti Warrior clinches LBO Intercontinental title. I'm talking about rising featherweight sensation Stanley Nyantechi. Reminds me of Kwesi Nyantechi. There was this joke back then. Kwesi Nyantechi. Like Kwesi, wake up Techi.
Kwesi Nyantechi.
Nyantechi.
Okay. Well, in the, sorry, are you done with that?
The final rivals, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire clash and blockbuster AFCON final showdown. Which team do you think will scrape through?
Nigeria.
Yeah. Now I'm lost because I didn't want either team to go to the final. Cote d'Ivoire, after some of the ways they peppered us, I think 92, Senegal 92. And in the finals, what happened? And then the fact that it would be another gong. I think both of them are on 3 or something, the trophies. I don't want them to catch up with Ghana or surpass Ghana. So that's
my association with Nigeria is purely based on relationship. I have quite the Nigerian crowd. And if Ghana is not there to do what we used to do in another lifetime ago, then Nigeria is my best bet.
If it were relationships, then I should be the one full Monty
on Nigeria.
Because Charlie, my ties there are Emupi.
Yeah, but go Eagles. Sunday I'll find some Nigerian jersey anyway. But the Daily Statesman has Bawumia's vision good for business as the headline. I don't know who is saying
boss.
that. Yes,
that's Dr.
the Guta. Okay,
Obeng.
He's happy about reforming port services. Apiache contractors urged to focus on external works before. This story of Apiache. What do you think about Apiache or Apiache?
Whichever way you pronounce it. But it's a long-standing issue, and I just hope that they get it right and sort those matters out.
It says Ghana launches non-resident visitors health insurance, also in the Daily Statesman. And then raiding development funding for climate, talking about climate issue and, the weather we have these days, global warming and all of that. Government's direct suspension of VAT, yes, the 15% VAT implementation on electricity consumption.
But the people say they've not been formally communicated to.
I saw a statement from the Finance Ministry to
that effect.
Yes,
was this yesterday?
Organized labor 2 days ago.
Was this yesterday? Because they are still saying, as of yesterday, they were still insisting that they wanted to be formally communicated to.
So they wanted to be engaged directly?
I don't know what it is, but they say until then, February the 13th is still looming.
Yeah. I saw a press statement or something yesterday where they were saying that Transport Union, everyone is joining them on the 13th to go on demonstration. But let's get into the actual stories, Benjamin.
Okay, so let's do that very quickly. The Daily Guide, Guta President hails port taxes reform, and
Nana Bediako is back in the news.
Do you mean Cheddar?
Yes,
Nana Kwame Bediako.
Nana Kwame Bediako is back in the news. NKB.
What's it about?
He's saying that he's going to reform policies, and I struggle to actually pinpoint one exact thing that he's going to do, one actionable point, something that he wants to do. Tell me.
I know one.
Tell me.
He's going to teach us all the way to wisdom, which leads you to money. Do you remember?
Yes, because he uses wisdom and relationships to make money.
I think that's a skill he must teach all Ghanaians.
I want to find the story. I wonder what...
And I'm very serious about that. We need that skill, the money making, that wisdom. The difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing. Yeah. Wisdom is the application.
Yes.
So I think he needs to share that wisdom with all Ghanaians so that Charlie, who know like money.
Maybe that's his secret, Everyone
of course, through the right channels, let me add.
Yeah.
Through the right channels.
The legal channels. Well, he says the leader of the New Force movement, Nana Bediako, has underscored the country's industrial sector as a significant driver of growth and has therefore stressed on the need to leverage the abundant natural resources to improve the economy and attract investment. In terms of policy, let me skip to here. He says, as part of his policies, Nana Bediako said he wanted to introduce an industrial revolution and would impact the entire nation. Like I keep saying, he says a lot. He's actually a good talker. But I struggle to find actionable points in his speeches, in his presentations. What is it?
What these people striving to try and lead Ghana don't know is, Charlie, you're talking. We have gone past the talk.
We have shock absorbers.
You better show something. See, the politicians have shown us that they can do matrical pan. When Chinua Achebe's things fall apart.
Yeah.
Eneka, the bird says that if the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, it has learned to fly without perching.
Yes.
Share. This year, like some people will say, we don't agree for anybody.
No, hashtag no agree for anybody. Yesterday, Bawumia was trending on Twitter because of his speech. And at some point, I felt bad for him. Coming from someone who had no expectations and listening to what Ghanaians had to say, the shock absorbers we have now for our politicians. It's just the same as we have for our national football team. Nothing shocks us anymore. I don't think that any Ghanaian or any young person is expecting that the next president will come and actually live up to expectation. And that would rather be the shock. If someone assumed the presidency seat and actually took steps to reform, recover, stabilize, and do things that helps the country to grow. Hallelujah. That will be a day that...
Like
okay.
he do you so right now it's like a child that instead of having different ways to guide, you're always hitting, lashing. It gets to the point where the lashes mean nothing. Like Odeshi, give me more. Like show me. What else will you do?
What will you show me? Anyway, governments to appoint more women. I want to do this story because I love women.
Right.
The government is determined to ensure that a significant number of women and people living with disabilities are appointed to serve in various metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. The Minister of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, Dan Butchie, has said this. Now, consequently, he said the majority of the 30% of government appointees to the 259 MMDs would be inaugurated on Monday, February 12th, and women and persons living with disabilities will be part of that number. So we are looking forward to seeing how that actually works. Benjamin, any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but the implementation, that's where the devil always is, in the detail. So let's see how they execute. That's what I would say.
And a story about
me, I've always been for more women. I feel we have a paucity of women in parliament, in all the strata of our leadership, from top to bottom, from assembly, district from assembly, unit committee, district to the highest. I feel there's such a yawning gap in there, and it's proven that wherever there are more females in leadership, there's better governance, whether it's a company or whatever. Women naturally, look, I always say it's like driving. Women, we're more aggressive drivers. I know some women, Charlie, they are like,
buga.
Yeah, but women more often than not have certain natural traits and characteristics that make them in some ways better in judgment, in leading in most capacities. I honestly say that. So it's good. You can have the men, it's a balance. Enough men to come through with and enough women also, the soft side, rational thinking on some points. And you get to go. We have a paucity of women, and it's a problem. Big problem.
Which is why I was quite sad to see that some women on the New Patriotic Party tickets lost their seats to represent their
women also
constituency.
came in.
But some of the women who lost their seats, Ghanaians jubilated over that. You know who I'm talking about?
Which ones? Tina Menza and Co?
No.
Or which ones? Oh, Adwoa Safo.
Yes, Adwoa Safo.
Hey, they jubilated.
Yeah.
But Charlie, the gap was serious.
It was serious. I think it just speaks to the fact that Ghanaians are tired now. And I don't know if this is our clarion call that we need to start doing something, which is why I'm particularly happy that organized labor is leading this initiative. These are the sort of things I read about in history books, that Ghanaians came together, demonstrated, did this, demanding that their voices be heard by government. And so I like that I'm alive and seeing this, and I'm actively participating in, if they will listen to us and actually do what we say, that is the day. Benjamin, any story in there that particularly catches your attention?
Bawumia is man of destiny, Kufuor says so. But before I get to that, President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Dr. Joseph Obeng, has expressed his joy at the speech delivered by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, which tends to do away with a number of taxes should he get elected as president in the 2024 election. Speaking to a Joy News reporter at the end of Dr. Bawumia's speech, Dr. Obeng could not hide his excitement about what the vice president articulated in his speech about traders and importers. He said, "I'm overly excited. This is exactly what I wanted to hear, and I heard it. It means that they have been listening to whatever pleas that we have been doing," he said. "The communication that we do with you on TV and all that are being listened to. It's all about adopting compliance as a tool of revenue collection in his administration." So it goes on and on. Of course, he's focusing on business and what tax measures, e-levy, among others. But when I share my blunt thoughts shortly, right, I will explain to Ghanaians why maybe this may be another case of matricule. We'll get there. But then, any thoughts? You wanted to say something?
Well, the special aide to John Mahama was saying that, unlike one thing that characterizes the New Patriotic Party, is they have the boost promises that they do not, fulfill. Now, Bawumia is saying he wants to scrap e-levy. What stops him from doing that now? As a chair of the Economic Policy Committee and all he says he plays advisory role. What has he been telling the president and the finance minister all this while? So until he becomes a driver, Right now, he's just a mate. So until he becomes a driver, he can't help
but you neighbor with you. Tobo, yeah, neighbor. Because he say, "Kwasi obema untoma tieniding."
What does that mean?
When the pauper, if the pauper says he will give you outfits, cloth or clothes, listen to his name.
Okay.
The pauper.
Yes. Yeah.
Says he will give you, you know.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's wait and see what most people are saying, that Bawumia should go and come back. He doesn't seem like he's ready.
Former President Kufuor doesn't think that. He believes Vice President Bawumia should be the next to lead the country after President Akufo-Addo. And he sees him as a man on a mission who is determined by destiny, considering how he came into politics and his performance over the years. You know, I'm going to ask you an interesting question.
Yeah.
If you could rate Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia 1 over 10, 8 years into office, well, 7+ years, how would you rate him? 1 to 10. Now, I'm making you the guest.
I would rate him. You see, I feel like Bawumia has been non-existent. He's been an vice president. He's not been in
He's been a what?
Vice president, electronic. He's only comes on our screens. That's when he needs to deliver a speech or something. He's not actively been on the forefront of anything, which makes it difficult. Like he's saying that he's only been a mate all this while. So I would rate him 3, between 3 and 4. Because if you're a vice president and you cannot help propel the nation to stability or growth or economic recovery, and you're waiting for us to give you, it's like saying that, they're saying that if you know what I'm trying to say? You know, if someone has the little I have, so the talent that God gave you, the position we've given you, what did you do with it? Now you're saying that we should give you the mandates to be the actual president before you can do something. I'm sorry, but he has to between 3 and 4 for me, and that's me being very generous.
And saying that also brings me back to the term kwatrekwa, which also implies nakedness, right? It reminds me of Benjamin Kwachi and his book, The Clothes of Nakedness. It's one that I proffer for. Have you read it?
No, The Clothes of Nakedness.
Yes. It just reminded me of that. Benjamin Kwachi, The Clothes of Nakedness. If you have the time, and if it's an African writer's book, Harvard-trained Ghanaian guy, The Clothes of Nakedness. It's a bit of a satire. It plays on, yes. Anyway, while you look for it, the Ghanaian Times disclosed funding sources. This is the only story I'll do in the Ghanaian Times newspaper as we get ready to wrap. And I have to do Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. It skips me at the start today.
Please tell me about Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic.
So, the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition is advocating an amendment of the Political Parties Act 2000, Act 574, to include the disclosure of funding sources for presidential and parliamentary candidates. You know how we've heard, not just from the grapevine, but from individuals that Charlie, I spent X million, I spent X million. We are not mentioning names, right? But the point is, where them get all that money from?
To quote Akufo-Addo, yetisikaso nso accommodate. Where the money?
Now I think we ought to rephrase that or reframe it, and just say yetisikaso, ebitisikaso.
Well,
and so accommodate binom.
Yes. Because it's not the disparity between the rich and the gap between the rich and the poor in this country. It's A.
But do you know what it takes to own a house in the AU village?
Tell me,
Charlie. But
some people
will never work before. All of a sudden, them go into governments, then they own houses with pools and things.
And even the boys that just follow these politicians, the houses they have. The money is yesterday. 2 days ago, when I was watching Bawumia's speech, I was asking myself, all those people they're hailing and cheering him on, are they happy? Are they genuinely happy in this country? I'm speaking as a young person. I don't think that I want to sit and be hailing and cheering on anyone in this country. Because
please allow.
Charlie, anyway.
If you've not got the right kelewele, you say kelewele ha jaundice. But when you eat the right kelewele, then you realize that Charlie, the kele is willing.
When I grow up, I want to be as rich and comfortable as them. That's what I'm saying. Because it
through
seems
the right
like
means.
they're okay.
Through the right means. You know, when you work for money, where you chop up. It feels like you feel benze.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Charlie, but sometimes the sources of making money in this country are very limited. So a lot of people go the other way.
Ghanaians work hard, Benjamin. The young people I know are doing 2-3 things at the same time. CEOs selling this, providing services here and there, and we still struggle to make ends meet. We are not lazy people, so sometimes it's really disheartening to hear the figures that we hear that people pump into politics because they want to enter and loot more, not because they want to genuinely do anything for the country. Anyway, should we wrap this up?
And what kills me even more is underemployment. I keep saying, unemployment, you don't even have a job. Underemployment, you've studied architecture, accounting, maybe even Spanish and stuff. And you're an excellent student. The other day we had a caller who said, I think he had 3.72 in accounting and all of that. He's doing something completely different. Remote. You had that. It was an interaction. You actually went.
It's airing on Monday. Yes,
that is a crucial problem we are not addressing in this country. We focus on unemployment. Underemployment is a terrible thing because you've gone to spend your life learning how to be a nurse or something, and you don't have work, and now you have to resort to other things.
It's also
so we are
because
losing manpower.
The education system is not structured that industries or companies can absorb the talent, the numbers that they're churning
in other
out.
Jurisdictions.
If you go and study accounting, how many accounting firms, how many companies actually need accountants?
In other jurisdictions, they plan and they know that this year we're going to need 30,000 engineers, 10,000 accountants. And so there is engagement with labor, with multinational corporations, with entities. So that as we produce, yes, you will still pick, but it will trickle down. By and large.
That's systems working.
Yeah.
That's structures in place to enhance.
That is digitization working.
That's right. 24/7. Hey, what did he say? 24 hours a day. 24 seems to be running through the campaigns, both the NDC and the MPP. I wonder where that actually started from. Is it from Bahamas 24 economy or Baumia saying digitalization 24 hours a day?
I wouldn't know, but whatever it is, I'm just saying that Ghanaians, shine your eyes and whomever we decide for, whomever we decide for, fine. But let's not be hoodwinked into anything. That's all I'll say. I'll be coming your way in a bit with my blunt thoughts. I've titled it today, A Tsunami of Political Promises Cutting Surgically to the Truth. We're cutting to the bone to the marrow. And inside the marrow, what he has here, just to open your eyes to a few things. But any final words before we acknowledge Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic?
Just that I don't know how I feel about former President Akufo-Addo saying that you can't actually blame any political party or any government for corruption because, it comes with it. I wrote that down the moment I heard it.
Are you referring to Kufuor?
Yes. He said,
he said,
one. You cannot fault
But you remember
government.
the infamous statement that, you remember back then, in the early 2000s, after he came to power. I mean, Kufuor is someone I like, I respect.
We all revere him.
In recent times, some of the comments, though, especially on Baumia, I'm wondering what's
where's that coming from?
The level of honesty and the narrative is. But he said back then that corruption had been with us since the days of Adam.
Yes.
And I felt if you're trying to fight corruption, no one says you will have a society where it is 100% clean. No one is doing anything. Even in advanced societies, even in Japan, a place like Japan, if they catch you, like the consequences, the disgrace, look, there's some stigma. No one wants to go there. But still, people, you get it. So it's not about, it's not like 100%. But when you're trying to fight something, you don't go and such rhetoric only points to the fact that, so let's just,
I didn't really experience his, government as an adult. But I remember, song J.A. Kufu, Ghana Nchebo Kufu. I don't know. Do you remember that song? Because people were talking about how he's made a country poor. He took us to HIPC and all that. Even at that time, I don't think the monies that we owed, I don't think our national debt was up to 2 billion Ghana cedis. And now, we can't even pay our own debts. Charlie.
It is well. But I always say this will be my final point, that even as we talk about all this, I always say, young people, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi is coming. We talk about the National Sports Authority and everything. Who knows? Maybe he may be a sports administrator someday. I sit here, I'm talking. Who knows? I may be in some pole position someday. Let us not, as youth, like we've seen recently with that Nigerian minister, I think the youngest in the Nigerian cabinet, now also some 500,000 pounds and all of that. Let's not do all of this and then I'm not interested in politics. I've said it time without number. Okay. I'm not interested. I've had people, I'm not interested, okay? But should we be in some pole position, whether in politics or outside, let's remember these things and do better. I think that's the only way we can create a system like Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore, so that eventually what is now the exception, which is doing the right thing, becomes the norm, and vice versa. Anyway, before we get into sports with Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. If you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Just reach out to them at any of their branches. In Accra, they're at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronomo, Abuehian behind the Angel Educational Complex. The Stakrade Energy Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiaman Zema. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Bringing us to the end of the news review.
See you on the flip side.
Sports up next. You want to stay for that.